All right, welcome back. This is our final panel, and I think we're going to go out with a bang. So this is a panel that I've been super excited about since the beginning. I think it was actually the first panel that we set up for this conference. I worked with Jeremy Broker. Jeremy's the moderator on this panel, but I mentioned kind of right before we went to the break, it's an interesting topic. I think the three speakers that we have here are going to kind of come at this from slightly different angles, but generally, the focus is on leveraging celebrities' strengths, their talents, their brand, their interest, their personal mission, and directing that towards financial investments and companies that they might be founding to create the best and longest lasting value. That's going to touch on VC, fashion, tech, direct to consumer, entertainment, all sorts of different ways to do that. So I think that being said, Jeremy, I'll turn it over to you as a moderator, let you introduce yourself and the three awesome panelists here.
Thanks, Matthew. Yep, great to join everyone here. 3:11 p.m. West Coast, 6:11 East Coast. So we will jump right in. Last panel of the day. Very excited to present the group and the topic. So Matt asked me if I would do a panel for his upcoming conference, and I said there are two conditions. My panel has to include the term side hustle and street cred. So we got halfway there. We got side hustle, which is good enough, and we'll talk about some street cred as we dig in. And so really what we've done here is we've designed the main and the subtopics around the audience, right? Primarily for business managers, accountants, ventures, single and multifamily office investors. And so while a few of our panelists are here on the road, it just so happens we're all based here in Los Angeles in normal times. Where I think it's probably the archetype of locations where the celebrity and venture investor have become inextricably linked, right? Couple examples: Ashton Kutcher, Leonardo DiCaprio recently with Struck Capital, buddies of ours here in LA, Carmelo Anthony, Will Smith, Nas, right? List goes on and on and on. And so while we'll come back to this topic, a really important one kind of for definitional purposes with Kimberly in a minute, we wanted to level set the concept of what we're using is the new paradigm perhaps for celebrity, which extends well beyond, our traditional thoughts of sports, entertainment, media, et cetera. So for the purpose of our discussion, we're talking about people of influence, and Kimberly will take us deeper into that topic. And so backing up to the folks on the panel, Jeremy Broker, Director of Private Equity, Family Office, and Venture Capital here at Moss Adams. So spend my time with those three groups by and large, and in connection with that, work with a lot of operators and entrepreneurs. And then I'll quickly just kind of go down the list here. And I think it always sounds best coming from each person directly. So Kimberly, over to you. If you could provide an intro, please.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am Kimberly Kreuzberged. I am the founder of Pivot Projects, which is a full-service business partner for celebrity talent. We build storytelling platforms offering marketing, operating, and merchandising services to both new and existing talent-led brands. Some of our clients include Halle Berry and Respin, Chrissy Teigen, her Cravings brand, Channing Tatum's Magic Mike, and we also work with Molly Sims and Eva Longoria. I live in LA with my three kids, and that's my story.
Great. Ali, please.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hi, Kimberly, Vik. So my name is Ali Fakhari. I'm founder of August Venture Partners. Had a strategy consulting background, which started to get a little bit, ordinary after you give some great advice and let some executives take over. So as I started to expand in LA with my own personal network, but also individuals who really have passion for building new ventures, I started to see that there is an unmet demand for helping entrepreneurs in multiple different sectors build their brands and businesses. So I started my own firm to really do that. I've had the pleasure of working with Nas, Floyd Mayweather, Beyonce, folks who have really credible work, obviously, in their own respective fields, be it fashion and beauty to fitness and even tech. So now it's identifying how to go deeper and really bring to bear a lot of those strategic findings to help operationalize their businesses and their goals that they're passionate about. So excited to answer the team's questions and learn more about everyone here. Vik, go for it.
Vik, bring us on.
All right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. Vik Sasi, I'm a partner at Dreamers. We're an early stage generalist fund based here in LA. We're co-founded by Will Smith, who everyone probably knows, and then this big Japanese soccer player who most people don't know, whose name is Keisuke Honda. Contrary to popular belief, we're not a traditional celebrity fund or offshoot of the family office. We're structured like a 2 in 20 venture fund and capitalized with all Japanese limited partners. So Nomura, the big investment bank, is our anchor LP, and then we have a pretty diverse composition of the rest of our capital base. Shiseido, Mitsubishi, ASICS, Dentsu, relative who's who of some of the biggest household names of Japanese conglomerates on the island make up our LP base. So we officially launched, coming up right on 2 years, November 1st-ish, 2018. We've been super active. We've done 57 deals in that time period. 25% consumer, 25% healthcare. The other 50 is a random smattering of gaming, fintech, esports, all over the map. And yeah, I can probably talk more about investment approach and value props and all of that, but I'll save it for the rest of the session. But yeah, thanks for having me, and excited to share more.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So, and then for the attendees here, if anyone has questions, I will monitor I'll monitor the Q&A box here. So please go ahead and see a funny message. Thank you, Heath. That's very kind of you. I'll monitor this here for some Q&A. Hopefully we get a few of these that we'll attend to at the end. Our learning objectives, what we'd like to share with the group, fourfold. So first, identifying strategies for expanding celebrity clients' revenue channels. 2, describing ways in which financial investments can create long-lasting value. Apply strategies used by other business managers who have celebrity clients now branching into new businesses, and predict trends in celebrity revenue streams based on current global trends and events, which there are no shortage of. To kick things off, let's please start with Kimberly. I think just to kind of piggyback on some of the words I shared, which ultimately came from you, what does today's celebrity look like vis-a-vis kind of our traditional celebrity concept, and how do you see that playing out in the future?
Yeah, it's interesting because we were talking before, and knowing the audience and business managers and fund managers, I felt like the word celebrity could be slightly polarizing if you're not in LA, or if you don't work with the J-Lo or The Rock. So I was telling Jeremy that I feel like for the purpose of today, I think of anyone with influence. I think of people like Mark Cuban, Melinda Gates, Ariana Huffington. You know, they could be your client now. And I just think it's about defining someone who has an above average audience or community. And most likely this person has built their reputation by being some sort of expert in some sort of niche. And so I think for today's purpose, I think it's helpful when business managers think of how am I helping all of my clients leverage their personal IP, not just J-Lo and The Rock, though we all would love to work with them. So I think that's kind of the first thing I wanted to say. And then secondly, I think it's important when we think about celebrity, not just, it really, like, I think what happens with me, a lot of celebrities just want to build a business. And so it takes people like everyone on this call and probably the business managers being really discerning and being the no players. And a lot of celebrities in my world surround themselves with yes people. And I think we are the people who can say that doesn't make sense, or I try to build a plan around that, or I've seen business like this. We've seen the playbooks in market, and I think it's up to us to educate and share kind of what's best in class, what operational excellence looks like, and not be afraid of the pushback, because we will find the business to build around the right celebrity or the right person of influence. We just need to be in control and kind of understand the white space and the intersection of the white space and that celebrity and the opportunity, and work with the celebrity who gives us that opportunity to be the leader and to be their best business partner. And the other thing I would say is that for business managers, I think there's a big difference in playing to not lose versus playing to win. And I think when you're not an agent or a business manager, I think you can come at it from a position of playing to win. And I think that's what the celebrity ultimately wants versus taking the safe bet, being the yes man, and playing to not lose.
That's great. Ali, Vik, thank you for sharing, Kimberly. Anything on that topic, just kind of definitionally around today's concept of celebrity?
Ali?
Yeah, I was just gonna, I think Kimberly nailed a lot of the concepts. I think when I first started looking at this white space of how do you differentiate what agents, managers, wealth managers, attorneys, the entire infrastructure that's often behind these amazing talent, what I started to recognize is not only is there a lot of capability sets that are applied, but there's a lot of overlap in those capabilities. So a lawyer needs to know the business side as much as a business person needs to know the legal side. And that extends across the spectrum. But really, as Kimberly pointed out, it's what matters to both that individual and their audience that really is key. So making sure that whether it's a yes or a no, that it's right for that individual and really right for the consumers that will ultimately engage with that individual. That's, in my experience, been the biggest determinant of success. In the past, you'd have, just put your name on a package and hope that it sticks. And, consumers are way too savvy for that anymore. You need to have something that's much deeper, that goes to the crux of why they're starting a business or building a celebrity-based brand. And I think the entire team needs to be behind that. So as Kimberly said, if you have some folks who might be saying yes or no, if there's not a holistic yes behind it, really the chances of that business being successful are much less. And I think you need the buy-in across the organization. These are almost like little, as Vik said, family offices of sorts. But frankly, regardless of how you structure it, there has to be some credibility through and through the organization that whoever you pick up the phone and talk to, they're as articulate about what you're doing as anyone else. Otherwise, people will start to see through it.
Sounds right. So it wouldn't be, obviously very much echo a lot of what Kimberly and Ali were saying. It wouldn't be a fun panel if there wasn't at least a little bit of controversy or at least some, I don't want to push back, but one of the theses that we've been pursuing and really seeing a lot of interest and a lot of startups coming out of is sort of about how creators are kind of the new brands. And so, if you look at some of these recent polls of what kids in the US and the UK today want to be when they grow up, I mean, one of the more prominent answers, it's like 30% is YouTuber or, vlogger. An answer which is seriously 3 times more popular than astronaut, which is like shocking coming from one of those former, wannabe astronauts. And so I think just, going along, and maybe this was mentioned in some of the earlier sessions, but, I think we've really seen digital media kind of just change drastically over the last decade with, minutes watched in live streaming now exceed minutes watched in nearly all forms of TV combined. In China, that's certainly true. And I think in the US for those under 25 years old, not necessarily over. And so basically, like, we have been tracking this sort of shift in attention has kind of created a new form of celebrity, which is like the content creator. And just to note, creators, we don't look at creators as the same as influencers. There's certainly some overlap, but we kind of look at creators as being far more authentic, identifying as artists and tending to resonate a lot more with Gen Z. Whereas we look at influencers, kind of identifying a little more with like marketing, brand sponsorship, sponsored content, and resonating with millennials. And so creators, as we found, are kind of grabbing the attention previously allocated to traditional media and really changing that video paradigm. We've certainly seen it with TikTok over the last 8 months of COVID and lockdown, and screen time has just shot up through the roof. And they changed the video paradigm, consumer habits, and really consumer spending. And so, yeah, I mean, we think it's just giving rise to this entirely new ecosystem of like the creator economy, and also known as passion economy, hustle economy, et cetera. So yeah, just one of the things that we're really looking at on the early stage startup side.
Awesome. Thanks, Vik. If anyone's keeping score at home, that's the 4th mention of the word hustle. And we are
Nice.
15 minutes into the presentation. I told Matt we'd get him a baker's dozen. So title of the panel, Side Hustle, which is, a bit tongue in cheek, but for most celebs, this is becoming more, I just said celebs. This is becoming more than just a side hustle, right? It can be a whole new calling, a way to reinvent themselves, brand themselves, market, monetize, etc. Let's start with Ali on this one. What strategies have you implemented in order to assist your clients branching into a new business or new businesses?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to authenticity. As you were mentioning, hustle, I was hearkening back to Letterman's new season of his Netflix special, and his first guest was Kim Kardashian, and he asked her the very pointed question of, how do you discern what kind of products you might endorse or say yes to, or types of businesses that you want to get involved with? And the hustler in her basically said, at the beginning of my career, I was saying yes to everything because I either didn't have a lot of other examples to compare it to, or didn't exactly, care what was coming in as long as it paid the bills. But as she got more not only well known, but discerning in what mattered to her, and certainly what mattered to her audience, that shifted dramatically. And you see now, brands are tripping over themselves trying to work with her. But really, the strategies that I try to deploy with my clients is, you are the brand, but you're also the business, meaning you have the capacity to engage an audience. But if you don't really believe in the business model around what you're building, and you're not part of that building process, the likelihood that, it'll become something that you're excited to not only build, but also talk about, will start to lose luster, and you'll start to lose momentum behind it. So most of, those businesses come from places that they know, right? So if it's an athlete, it's typically around things that the athlete has engaged with in their life, whether it's fitness, food and beverage products, nutrition, things like that. But more so, it's how do you make sure that the business model that you have in place that can scale what you've learned over the course of a 20+ year career can apply to individuals who are just getting up that learning curve. Because consumers, again, they want to engage with you, but if it's so far out of the ordinary that, it's not something that they can actually pick up and use, or go to a class and figure out and really enjoy, then that customer lifetime value is minimal. So the strategy really is around credibility building, both in how it fits with your brand, but also how the business model can help scale that.
Thanks, Ali. Kimberly, same question. Oh,
Sorry. What am I implementing? Is that what it was?
Yeah, so strategies that you're implementing to assist your clients who are branching into, new businesses. They're new businesses, new categories for them.
Yeah, I think it's understanding exactly what Ali said, but what are they authentically already talking about and doing on their handles or with their audience? Where do they see the most engagement in their two-way conversation that they're having on a daily basis? How do we build a business out of that? Also a business that's relevant for today. So they might have an amazing idea around, a fashion line or, a third-party assortment, and it might not be relevant in trying to create impact. So understanding their financial goal around the business, do you want to make money? Is this a for-profit business? And then we need to be thinking through, are we targeting, the 3 top, like an Amazon, Walmart, Target play? And if so, what do they need right now? What's resonating with their customer? How can we be a solution for them? And so really trying to put all of these things together. And I think ultimately, my priority is coming in and creating operational excellence. So if they have a foundation, cleaning that up, whether it's, their business plans, their roadmap, creating digestible financial products so that I can actually walk them through it. And I think a lot of celebrities I don't numbers, or that's not my thing. And just like what Ali said, if you're building a brand, you're building a business. And so one of my requirements with working with the client is that that I work with them directly. I can't be paid through an agency. I need a direct line or I won't be successful. And so I think understanding that they will be willing to be in the weeds with me and want to learn and be excited to learn. And I think on my side, it's creating product, whether that's a resourcing model or a financial plan, everything being really digestible for them. So I'm not trying to send them an expenditures model that they're like, whoa, like I don't know what this is. So how do I do that in the lamest terms? And how do I make it really easy so they feel comfortable with me as a business partner and they don't feel overwhelmed by what's coming at them? Because there's going to be a lot of conversations like this and a lot of decision making. So I think I have to think through, like, if I know my client loves visual representation, I quickly turn it into a deck versus an Excel. So those are the things that I try to do when trying to help a client or a celebrity build a business and help them digest the components of the business. I don't know if that answered perfectly, but.
No, that's great. Thank you, Kimberly. Vik, anything you want to add there? And then we'll kick off with you on the next one.
Yeah, not, I'm nearly 100% on the early stage venture side. But one of the things that we talk about is there's this famous quote from Alex Rampell, who's a prominent fintech investor at Andreessen Horowitz, who says there's always this constant battle or race for startups to get distribution versus incumbents to get innovation. And in that respect, he was talking about incumbents, referring to corporates, but basically, for us and Will and the whole family pursuing their own internal business is, ultimately the biggest value prop is going to be the distribution that you're getting. And are you willing to, and obviously echoing what Ali and Kimberly were saying, but how much are you actually willing to invest in this, not non-financially, which is you've built up this great brand, but how much are you going to shill for this, suitcase company or whatever it may be versus like taking on that risk of brand dilution. And so I think we always try and, make sure, like, is this something you're really going to be able to, go to town with? And just more importantly, is it, how getting to that customer lifetime value is like, how extensive really is your reach in the consumer, the willingness to pay for somebody for, some random commodity. So yeah, I'll probably leave it there because I'm not as versed in it as the other two folks on the panel.
No, that's great. Thanks for
Vik was really smart though, because I'm sorry, Jeremy, but I do feel like we kind of passed over, but like the share of mind and the time commitment, I think that's the number one qualifier. And I think we're moving so fast, but understanding how much time they want to put into this business versus what they have on their plate and their bandwidth. And I think that's a really important thing to qualify, because we can all present multiple different ways of building the business, a licensing model, direct to factory, a private label, and all of them require a different amount of time. And I think what Vik was saying is interesting. Are you having to do book signings at Walmart? Are you going to have to do public appearances? Like, these are really important to build a retail relationship and wholesale partnerships. And I think sometimes we're so in the weeds in the building that like we're not really qualifying. Like, so making sure you're going to do a public appearance at Walmart 3 times next year, because that will be required in any contract we create with them. So anyway, Vik, I thought that was great.
Great. So for the historians out there who might recognize this quote from Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste. We've been saying that for like 9 months now, and that's mentioned with all due respect. So clearly, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted income, revenue streams for many celebrities. How have your clients responded, and have you taken action during this time to help them diversify through other revenue streams? And has this created any kind of necessary or opportunistic pivot? Maybe we'll start with you on that, Vik.
Yeah, sure. So, speaking for the Smith family, they leveraged their existing very well built out content and social media teams to still keep releasing content. And I want to just underline, as safely as possible, adhering to all of the safety protocols without question. And it certainly was on a lower clip than pre-COVID. But, they were able to sort of move right over to doing, sort of TikTok, on Snap. They launched a couple shows, and to really adapt right away because they had that infrastructure built out, which I think was, in retrospect, was a really smart investment on the whole family side. And then, while, Will's currently filming for King Richard, while that was obviously put on hold, Red Table Talks actually adapted. They would obviously before they would go into a production studio, sometimes do them offsite. And then they decided, guess what? We've got this, this great compound in Calabasas. Let's bring everybody here, dedicate a certain, sort of area, keep it as clean as possible, sanitize it, et cetera, do everything as safely as possible, but we can still keep filming and keep releasing content. And then I think the other thing is, aside from like some of the largest sort of the biggest talents out there, these aren't corporations that are, that need to shore up their bottom line or something. So I think it was kind of going back to, I think it was Kimberly's point earlier. It's mostly is like not to lose, over the last 8 months versus trying to find, some winning like mask opportunity or whatever. I think mostly it's like, most of the initiatives I've seen, which I'm sure we all have, is really about a lot more people are politically motivated and really want to get out the vote versus trying to sort of, create their own brands or business lines. But that's just, again, an N of one and, my own experience.
Great. Thanks, Vik. Ali, you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah. And I think part of that, not wanting to lose, but also the things that you do spend time on, which is their most valuable resource, frankly, for a lot of these amazing, busy people, is if I do spend time on it, I better make sure I'm passionate about it, because even if it doesn't make any money, there are things that I can learn from it, or I can hopefully help other people with. And I've seen this, especially, on the more passion side with COVID. Beyonce's team, they did an entire overhaul of, what mattered when, she stopped performing, right, as a result of COVID. And, she wasn't pursuing things that, she might have in a normal year, because she wanted her asset base. She wanted her skill set of her entire team, not just herself, to go and focus on how they can be helpful. And so I had conversations, with her team who was doing lighting for her concerts, who is now taking that same asset base that they would go and, sell to stadiums for her great lighting sets, to now go and make PPE equipment. And, I thought that was not only a very authentic way of, changing how her assets are deployed, but really something that extends far beyond the financial benefit of it. And this is not stuff that most celebrities even talk about, because they're doing it from a very altruistic standpoint, but they're doing it because it matters to them. She made no money from, selling PPE, and, didn't expect that her lighting vendor would either. It was really, how do I help our communities, especially the ones that she calls home? Like, she disproportionately invests there because she cares. And, she's not going to get on a social media post and talk about it. So, and I think that goes back to, how authentic can you be without even trying to be authentic? You can just, by virtue of your actions, even if they're not seen by millions of people, still have a major impact. And when people talk about it like we are now, it's so much more resonant because you're doing it from a standpoint that's purely beneficial to others.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's something that we share with our kids, and in fact, with ourselves as well, which is try doing something nice and not telling anyone about it, right? Which is probably the most genuine way to deliver that. Kimberly, over to you for the pivot during COVID.
I feel what I've been seeing is, I've been busier than I've ever been in my life, because with the talent not on set, everybody's ready to build. I think everybody's had an idea that's been stirring for years, whether it's skincare or a dance app, and now they have the time to actually focus on it and find the team and build. So with that, it's been really an interesting time, an exciting time. I think what COVID has done is, how do you build a business that is relevant in a post-COVID world? So, there's some of my brands have experiential has always been a big part of their business. Ticketed events, obviously, that could be a revenue stream in the business and reflected, but we can't hang our hat on that. That's one of 5 business units. Just knowing if anything ever happened like this again. For me, the talent I've seen has gotten really creative with scaling their social audience by doing like Instagram lives with someone who maybe normally wouldn't be available, and getting some powerhouse, and they're able to amplify it together, or take part in a Zoom event, things that have been effective or philanthropic that have been exciting. I've seen, like for Chrissy Teigen, Cravings, the cookware at all of our retailers just flying. I mean, everyone's cooking, everyone's home. So there's been a lot of production and inventory issues. And so we're trying to respond to when we'll have replenishment and then how much push we can do around that. Magic Mike did something really cool. A lot of their shows, they have shows in London, Berlin, Vegas, and Australia. And they ended up doing some virtual bachelorette parties and kind of throwing a lot of bells and whistles, but finding these women who have been planning years for their bachelorettes. And we used the guys from the shows to entertain, and it was really cool. So I think there's been a level of creativity and grit. This is a time when people can test. And I think with celebrity, and I think we've all seen this, there's a level of exposure that it's really scary to test in a small way or to be gritty. You kind of have to go big out of the gate and polished and need all the right, need the right team in place. You can't really make mistakes. There's very little room for error. And I think in this COVID crisis time period, I think there's been a lot more testing and a lot more freedom and I don't know, I think that's been really cool. Watching whether it's influencers or talent putting themselves out there and testing. And I think TikTok is a great example of people kind of being authentic and kind of goofy. So I think that's been really fun to watch.
Jeremy, can't hear you.
No, thank you. I think that's those are some great points and examples there. And I think, always looking for the silver lining here as this thing's getting longer and longer in the tooth is, I think for a lot of folks, this was a shot in the arm they needed. If it was, hey, we're going to leave California one day, we're going to get right for 10 years. And sure enough, our friends just moved to Idaho, to Oregon, to Washington, to Texas, to Tennessee. And so, perhaps with, ideation around different concepts, businesses, career changes. I mean, I think this has really been a, springboard and inflection point for a lot of people and their brands. So with respect to, I think a couple of you touched on this, but this year, obviously, what Ali shared with regard to Beyonce and her PPE efforts. I think, just kind of conceptually and categorically, we've seen a big rise in these impact and social mission focused efforts. What trends and shifts, if there's some, for examples, have you noticed with your own clients or their businesses? Maybe we start with you, Vik.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. I mean, the family has been, the Smith family, I mean, and even Keisuke on the Japanese side, I mean, they've been mission driven for a while now. I mean, 20, 25 years. They set up their family foundation in like the late 90s, I want to say. I mean, and they've been active participants in a number of different initiatives. So, I actually don't think, I'm sure they've stepped up, some engagement maybe with, maybe financially. I certainly can't speak to that, but I would say, I mean, they've always been mission driven, and I think just from my, sort of like view, we've continued to see more sort of, impact focused engagement across a number of fronts in the talent world. But I don't want to sound pessimistic, but I'm not entirely sure anything more than incremental will ultimately come out of it.
How about you, Ali?
Yeah, I think you're right, Vik. There is already a strong swell of reason why mission-driven and social impact and ESG initiatives are taking foothold. Not only because consumers are demanding it more, but because it's the right and better thing to do for business, as the data has shown. So many of these initiatives in corporate, which are a very small piece of the spend when it comes to overall corporate social responsibility, has a huge impact. And there's been studies on, everything from how it affects stock price to consumer sentiment and net promoter score. But more importantly, it's how you deploy those things. So a lot of, I'll say, corporations do it because they have to do it and because they know, it might help them, but it's not core to what they do. It's very few businesses that are kind of existing and have been around for 50 plus years that had this aha moment early enough where they said, we have to do this. So I think it's a great opportunity, especially for more youthful celebrities who are trying to establish their own brands, that they do things that matter to them, but also that matter to their broader social influence that they'll have. And the way I've seen this play out is, with so much dry powder, as Jeremy would call it, in private equity out there these days, not every business is going to survive. And so right now, a lot of investors are thinking about, where do I want to invest and where not? And disproportionately, they're going to invest in those types of founders and those passionate leaders who really understand why it is they're doing something and can articulate that when they're going out to raise capital, for instance. And so those are the guys who will have much more of a head start when they start their businesses, and frankly, a lot more credibility when they're out in the market selling a product or a service. So I think it comes down to, again, you gotta walk that walk, but you got to back it up too. I mean, there's a lot of folks who say that they're, socially with it, and then they send out packaging that's, wrapped in 50 types of, boxes and plastic. So you really got to think deeper than, okay, we're just doing this for benefit. And you gotta have something that actually shows that when you're building out your product.
Great. Thanks, Ali. Kimberly, you want to bring us home on that one?
Yeah. I think like what I always think of is like purpose-driven commerce. I think Ali, you said mission and same thing, but like when building an e-commerce platform for one of my clients, it's like immediately we were thinking through all of those components. Is there a give back component? Is there a CSR effort for the organization or just for this product? Is there packaging? Are we being thoughtful about that? And then even just the impact of right now, like, are we supporting Black founders? Do we have all, inclusive sizing up to size 26 and 30? Are we having masks in the inventory, which is kind of part of today's, so kind of thinking through beyond just the social, but kind of trying to be relevant and progressive and modern and not tone deaf. So I think there's a level of just building through the lens of you're thinking of your worst press release, and you're also thinking about your purpose and relevance for the right now, and you're also thinking about how to create philanthropy. So I think there's all of these. I don't think anyone is out there building a business now without trying to go through all those filters and be really thoughtful, especially celebrity, which has so much exposure. I don't know. I think everyone kind of covered, but that's kind of my top line.
Yeah, obviously ESG has been kind of a buzz phrase for a while now. What does that mean? And how much of it is lip service versus actionable? And then, to everyone's point on the presentation here, how much of that is genuinely supported versus, this is, for publicity. The competition's doing it. I got to do it. I need some positive PR, whatever the case may be. And kind of there's that age-old belief, right, where there's mutual exclusivity between doing good and doing well. Right. If my English teacher, 7th grade English teacher, is okay with that, right? Where you've got, the ability to be profitable and to have, that double bottom line of being, socially, environmentally, even kind of on a governance basis, right, progressive in that regard. So how do those conversations go with your clients, and I'll just kind of throw up a jump ball here. Are those ideas coming from them? Do you sometimes bring those ideas to the table? Is it such that they're met with resistance sometimes, like, hey, let's just go after what's profitable, and what we make there, we'll donate and deal with through the 501c3, or as Vik mentioned, through the family foundation, as opposed to aligning both the do good and the do well in one single investment or business purpose? Anyone want to take a stab there?
I mean, I'll jump in with one thing that I think it depends if you're self-funded or you have investors, because sometimes it's not necessarily your decision, or you have to have, multiple stakeholders weighing in. I know, certain VCs, if the company is not profitable, just donating 10% of X, I think those are decisions that are made not in a vacuum. And I think there's a level, I think all of us are really lucky to work with people who are very philanthropic and very mission driven and have been for a very long time. But I don't know if everyone is, participating today if that's the norm. And I think we as business leaders, I think it's important that we are always bringing that to the table, and we're thinking through all of those scenarios, not just to protect our talent, but to be part of something that does have purpose and is putting good into the world. To go back to your do good, do well. I know I don't want to be part of something if I was working with talent that had no interest in it. I think that's whether or not I'd want to align with them as a client.
Great.
Makes sense. Yeah, I guess from my end, we so one of the things about Dreamers, one of I guess the impetus behind it was to also add some more like formal structure and framework around some of the early stage investments. And so I guess as we've come to find I guess a lot of, and not speaking for the family or case agent, but just even in our experience, just sort of being in the celebrity world, if they have a moral attachment to a certain deal, or it's a personal connection, it's their college roommate that's starting a company or something, then and maybe there's some impact adjacent part of it, just do it with the expectation that it is going to return zero, and just literally count it as a donation until you see a return. And I think some of the and I think when celebrities do get involved with companies, it tends to make more sense, certainly with talent driven initiatives at a later stage, when startup or when the company has finally become a going concern. But until then, and unless you have serious ownership, and then we're going back to that earlier question of how much are you really willing to lean in, you should actually take a serious look as to whether it's the right avenue. And the last thing I'll add is that something that we've seen, and the most prominent example is with Sienna Naturals, is if talent really likes a product so much that they're actually willing to come on as a co-founder. And so Sienna Naturals, made I think it was a fair amount of like really high quality hair products, and Issa Rae was one of their sort of more prominent spokespeople and users, and I'm sure there are countless other examples. But she ended up coming on, I think, kind of as a co-founder to really sort of drive those venture scale returns. So yeah, that's been sort of our experience.
Great. Anything additional on that one? I think we
not much more to add. I think the alignment around it is also really important. So we'll talk about this probably. I see some questions already starting to come in around how best to help diversify revenue streams, and have some thoughts around alignment there too. So save that.
Great. So next one here, tips for celebrities finding the right business partner, and then ultimately the right investor. So we've talked a lot about alignment, but maybe we can delve into it a little more specifically around business partner and investors. Ali, you want to start us out?
That's an important question that I think evolves over time. So a lot of the early investments or businesses that I've seen get started are usually with people that the celebrity knows, and for the right reasons. They have the install base of trust. They have the understanding of capabilities. But as those businesses evolve, the capability sets required to run them change, and so the types of people that are involved in those businesses will likely change as well. So I think it really comes down to your own personal EQ of understanding who is in your sphere of influence that you want to be working with, and do they align with your vision of what you want to build. I've seen many instances where, again, by virtue of time and people change and circumstances change, you veer in different directions, and that's okay. But you have to be also okay that you're going to make difficult decisions and have to say goodbye to certain people within a certain venture. It doesn't mean your relationship is done, but within a certain venture that might end. And that's part of normal course of business. And sometimes, especially with these amazing folks that have these strong bonds, that's one of the hardest things for them to do, is say no to people, because they want to be providing as much as their time and their energy as possible. But sometimes as their advisors, you have to give them a sense of, where is your time best spent? And it doesn't mean you have to say no to that person forever. There are other opportunities that might come up. But that's, I think, the number one determinant of who you want to be working with is, are they aligned with what you want to build? Can they build it at that juncture or stage that the business is in? And frankly, are you okay with having additional expertise maybe come in and potentially supplant them? So the more EQ and more comfort you have around that, the better I've seen navigating those tougher conversations.
Thanks, Ali. Vik or Kimberly?
Kimberly?
I can go. Yeah, sure.
Sure.
I think first understanding the financial incentive. What I find on the business management side and the agent side, there's a commission structure. And so I think there's a little bit of this competing agenda in the sense that, are they commissioned to find the right deal or to find a deal? And so I think immediately that feels like a really whack, antiquated system. And how does the celebrity create a commission structure out of like brand lift and engagement and growth versus just payment on transaction? So that's like the one thing that I feel like as a business partner, I would align first on the financial incentives and the overall goals, so that you're all working towards the same thing. And when I worked at Goop, one of the board members once said to me that, look for those that have scaled within the same parameters. So if you're looking to build a business from 0 to 25 million or 50 to 100 million, find someone who has done that and has found success doing it, because it's a playbook. And maybe it's not in merch and now it's in experiences or whatever it is, but a lot of the same mistakes will be made. And so there's a level of resourcefulness that one needs to, and then also working out like a hypergrowth startup. There's a level of resourcefulness that you have to withstand and survive to maintain. And so my advice would be, find someone that's done it. It might not be completely, it might be lateral with what you're working on, but I think there's something about finding the best-in-class talent and operators already built something similar versus taking a lot of risk, especially for a celebrity who has a lot of exposure, and with around the wrong team could be brand diminishing and dangerous.
Yeah, all great thoughts. I mean, the only thing I'll add, and we kind of look at this as the paragon, is follow the late, model of Kobe and partner with, someone like Jeff Steibel, who knows the game, has a track record with real proven returns, and there's not, raise real institutional capital. And that's a extremely legitimate top performing fund. And that's, I think that's probably the best outcome that I can think of.
Great. Thanks everyone on that topic. We'll save a few minutes. A couple questions have come in, so we'll save a few minutes there, but we'd be remiss to wrap this up without a crystal ball lightning round. So let's hear your predictions about the upcoming election. No, these are predictions around celebrity revenue streams, and to the extent that current global trends and events are shaping that. What does the crystal ball tell you each individually about your clients or the brands, the personality celebrity revenue streams going forward here? Kimberly, you want to start us off?
It's a tough one. I think it's less about celebrity trends, and I think I'm thinking more like disruption in retail and creating product that speaks to, like, I think between Amazon, Walmart, and Target, like I said before, how do you create product that resonates with that audience and with those retailers, and what do they need, and how do you create success and solutions around that? And so, I don't know, part of me feels like celebrities that don't have mass appeal and a direct connection with those customers, I think it's going to be really hard. I mean, I'm thinking very much retail, DTC. I think Vik and Ali can address the other ones, but I think of how do you create a product that's relevant for the now and for those retailers, and also in a post-COVID world, what makes sense now that maybe didn't make sense a year ago. It's kind of
Yeah, and I'll add on the kind of more strategic side around how you partner with the right folks that can accelerate your business, whether it's venture capital or a distribution or manufacturing partner. What I always say, for the advice I give is how much of that work that you put in is really going to have outsized returns. Because if royalties are important, then you want to make sure that the types of things that you're going to be talking about drive royalties. The inverse of that is take no money up front and build a lot more in terms of the late stage equity that you build with that business. It's especially, again, if you believe in it, but also see how your direct alignment with the growth of that business can benefit everyone. And so, most of these deals now have multiple components, so you don't have to choose one or the other. At the same time, the reason why you're able to get more disproportionate share of equity and or royalties is because you're showing that you're going to be much more involved in the business versus 10 years ago where you could just say, all right, well, I'm going to put out one tweet, or I'm going to have one appearance, or hold the product on one commercial. That's no longer going to work. If you give someone equity, let's say, you're guaranteeing that they're going to do everything in their power to make sure that that equity has real value, especially when you talk venture stage businesses that don't have liquidity around them. So, I try to advise my clients, go for as much of what you want to align with, so that when you do spend the time, you're spending the time disproportionately to build your equity stake. And oftentimes, that gives them more control over how the product's made, how it's distributed, and as Kimberly said, ultimately what the consumer associates with that brand, because they can tell that the celebrity really loves it.
Yeah, makes sense. I think my answer is really going back to kind of my initial comment about creators, and there's this book by Chris Anderson called The Long Tail, which is about marketing, and he basically says that many of society's assumptions about popular taste are actually like artifacts of poor supply and demand matching. It's sort of like a market response to inefficient distribution, and so when the tools of production are available to everyone becomes a producer. And I think now we've seen, certainly with COVID, but traditional, Hollywood production just in distribution has been, stopped in its tracks. Not to mention the rise of the TikToks and basically this democratization of production tools, which has led to this rise of the creator class. And I think it should actually really put big brands on notice. And taking something like the Super Bowl, which is, what everybody loves to sort of criticize, is, while we love seeing like those Clydesdale horses every Super Bowl from Budweiser, like smaller live streams on Twitch might actually offer like a similar return on ad spend. And so, one of the ways the family is working in conjunction. So Will did some content with Charli D'Amelio. I mean, she has 90 million followers and she's not even 18. And part of it is really to not get left behind in case Gen Z actually starts to kind of like get a little sick of some of these branded sponsorships, and it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be buying through Instagram. Like this is wholly inauthentic. And so in any event, I think we're still very much scratching the surface, and it could go in various different ways. Not to mention there's all sorts of globalization that could happen. But it's just something that we're intently tracking, and I think the whole world is as well. Yep.
Thanks, Vik, and everyone on that round. So let's jump to a question here. Thank you for the submission. You mentioned how during COVID, clients have more time to revisit ideas they hadn't fully developed in the past when they were busier. Do you ever deal with having to talk clients out of ideas that wouldn't work? How do you politely make the argument that an idea isn't ready yet and needs more work? Kimberly, you can't wait. Get it.
Is my video back on, or I guess I'm dark. I'm sitting here looking at myself. But...
We can hear you fine.
Okay. I think you make a business case. I don't think this is like your opinion versus their opinion. I think you can build a model and show whether or not the business is viable. I think celebrity and probably even demanding high net worth clients, it's hard to hear no. I mean, they want it and they wanted it yesterday. So I think our job is to manage that timeline. It's to build a business case. It's to, I think a lot of times, they'll see these Haley's comment, the George Clooney exit, the aviation gin. And I think in certain cases, it looks so easy. And I think we all know that is one of a million, if not a billion. And so I think it's about trying to manage an education. Can you show all the loss, like all the businesses that were built and did not succeed, that we're kind of trying to do the same thing? So the more we're equipped with education and the business acumen, and then managing up to the client, and then they're hiring you to be the expert. So speak straight and speak direct, and don't be afraid to be honest.
Yeah, and in addition to case studies, I think you're exactly right, Kimberly. Just giving them examples is always helpful. I like to use certain frameworks, and I'll steal the frameworks from others where it's necessary. A good colleague of mine, Betsy Morgan, has a 3 C's framework that's community, content, and commerce. So if you can come up with how that world works for a business, let's say, and you can identify how you're going to win in each of those segments, that's a framework that might work to explain why or why not to do a certain business. The 4th C that I'll add there, which is extremely important to the first part of the question, is the context, right? So in what context are you building that business? Is it the right time? I mentioned, with COVID, it's not the right time to be doing certain things, or it's the right time to do a lot of other, unrelated things. So putting that also in the calculus of these decisions, I think, is also really important.
Vik, any additions?
I think they nailed it.
Well, great. We're up against our full hour here that we've been allotted. So unless there's anything else, pause for a minute. But at least on behalf of the panel, want to thank Matthew and Ariana for inviting me, and by extension inviting the panel, and obviously big thank you to Ali, Vik, and Kimberly. Everyone's got a ton going on. There's a lot of noise, so I sincerely thank you on behalf of the Trusted Advisor Association. And you're all amazing. Thank you again for being so generous, and then of course to all the attendees here. Thanks for joining us here and bringing this thing home. Matthew, back to you.
Honestly, you guys could keep going for like another couple hours. I was like so into it. We were all texting kind of behind the scenes. There were so many just like nuggets of wisdom and know-how. Like you guys are like hardcore operators. It's so cool. I could geek out about that for a long time. Thank you all. Thank you, Jeremy, for putting this together. Thank you, Ali, Kimberly, Vik. You guys are rock stars.
Pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Yep. And hopefully many more of these to come.
Excellent. Yep.
For sure. Thanks.
See ya. You guys are amazing. Thank you all.